Behind the grace, flexibility, and jaw-dropping precision of gymnastics lies a world where a single misstep can turn fatal in an instant. Athletes push their bodies to the absolute limit, often suspended high above the ground, relying on perfect timing, strength, and trust in their equipment. But when something goes wrong, there is no margin for error. From training halls to international competitions, these horrifying incidents expose the dark side of a sport built on beauty and control. These are the 5 most terrifying gymnastics deaths, tragic moments where routine performances ended in unimaginable loss.
Đấu của Triet khi thi đấu hầu như luôn phát huy tốt hơn khi tập luyện. Trước khi qua đời, vận động viên thể dục dụng cụ Nguyễn Minh Triet rất trân trọng cuộc sống và bày tỏ ước muốn thiết tha tiếp tục được sống.
He was only 18 years old, an age when most people are just beginning to imagine their future, weighing possibilities, dreaming big, believing there's plenty of time. For Nguyen Triet, a gifted young gymnast from Vietnam, that future vanished in a single, devastating moment. It happened during what was supposed to be a routine training session. Triet attempted a backflip, something he had executed thousands of times before. This wasn't a risky new move or an experimental trick. It was familiar, controlled, trusted. But as his body rotated through the air, something went wrong. He came down head first. The impact was brutal. Instantly, Triet lost all feeling in his arms and legs. His body went still, unresponsive. He was rushed to E Hospital in Hanoi, where doctors performed emergency surgery before transferring him to Bach Mai Hospital. What followed was not recovery, but a long, painful fight to stay alive. Couldn't move. He couldn't breathe on his own. Machines kept his body functioning while his mind remained painfully aware of everything he had lost. And yet, he refused to give up. "I really appreciate life. I want to keep living," Triet whispered after his second surgery. His words shattered everyone who heard them. His coach, Major Hao Trung Lin, later recalled breaking down as he spoke. "He still had the will to fight," he said. "That's what hurt the most." But determination couldn't repair a broken spine. Despite constant medical care, Triet's condition slowly deteriorated. In April, he was transferred to Than Nan Hospital, where his final weeks were spent under careful watch, his family never leaving his side, still clinging to hope that never came. On May 9th, 2024, Nguyen Triet passed away quietly. What followed was an unbearable silence. Triet wasn't just a gymnast. He was the backbone of his family. The third of 4 children, he carried responsibilities far beyond his years. His father was retired, taking occasional security jobs. His mother was battling cancer. His older brother was too ill to work. His youngest sister was only 5 years old. Every month, Triet handed over his entire training stipend to help keep his family afloat. He never complained. He never asked for sympathy. Those who trained with him described him as tireless. He worked harder than anyone else, not chasing fame, but chasing a dream. He began gymnastics at just 7 years old. By 12, he had earned a place on Vietnam's national youth team. At 15, he dominated national championships, winning titles across the U12, U13, U14, and U15 divisions. In 2022, he added a bronze medal at the 9th National Sports Festival, competing for the Army team, and he was just getting started. Triet was determined to transition into the senior national team. He was weeks away from graduating high school. His future, once so clear, was finally within reach. Then came November 10th, 2023. At the National Sports Training Center in Hanoi, Triet was practicing 2 backflips into a foam pit, equipment designed specifically to prevent serious injury. But instead of cushioning his fall, the landing went catastrophically wrong. His neck took the full force of the impact. In a place meant for safety, everything collapsed. The gymnastics community across Vietnam rallied around him. Donations poured in. The Gymnastics Federation and Department of Sports ensured he received the best care possible. But no amount of support could reverse what had already happened. When Triet died, his coach admitted that part of them had been bracing for this outcome. "We knew the odds were low," he said, his voice shaking. "But knowing that doesn't make it easier. He always fought harder in competition than in training. That spirit never left him." More than 200 people attended his funeral.
Lady, she was the China Games gold medalist on this event. Huge vault.
Sang Lan wasn't just talented, she was dominant. Inside China's ruthless elite sports system, she stood out as something special, powerful, precise, and unshakably disciplined. By just 14 years old, she had captured every title at the Zhejiang Province Championships. By 17, she was one of China's most dangerous vaulters, a rising star with her sights fixed firmly on the world stage. The Olympics were within reach, not a dream, an expectation, and then everything collapsed. July 1998, New York City, the Goodwill Games. Sang was warming up for the vault final, performing a basic timer, a routine drill gymnasts repeat endlessly, often without conscious thought. She sprinted down the runway, hit the board, launched into the air, and never stood up again. She hit the mat hard, completely still, her eyes fixed on the blinding arena lights. She couldn't move. At first, the crowd didn't understand what they were seeing. Then panic set in. Medics rushed the floor as the arena fell into stunned silence. Sang was rushed to Nassau University Medical Center, where doctors performed emergency spinal realignment and cervical fusion surgery. The verdict was devastating and final. Her spinal cord had been irreparably damaged. Sang Lan, the teenager once expected to fly, was now paralyzed from the chest down. Her body was shattered. Her resolve was not. She remained in New York for nearly a year, enduring brutal rehabilitation at Mount Sinai Hospital. Recovery wasn't about returning to gymnastics. It was about learning how to exist in a body that no longer obeyed her. And all of it played out under a spotlight she never asked for. Famous visitors arrived, offering encouragement. Leonardo DiCaprio, Celine Dion, even Christopher Reeve, who understood paralysis better than most. On New Year's Eve, she was honored in Times Square, smiling for cameras while quietly enduring unimaginable pain. But behind that brave public image, anger simmered. Years later, Sang finally broke her silence. She insisted the accident wasn't a tragic fluke, it was negligence. According to her account, a coach from another team had walked into the vaulting area during her run and removed a critical safety mat moments before her takeoff. She said she reported this immediately, even while lying in a hospital bed. But officials dismissed her. They told her she was confused, that she had suffered brain trauma, that she didn't understand what had happened. She did. Sang accused the Chinese national gymnastics system of turning its back on her when she could no longer compete, of treating her as disposable the moment she stopped winning medals. And when she was finally old enough and strong enough to speak freely, she began preparing legal action against the event's organizers, not for compensation, but for accountability, for the truth to be acknowledged. Because Sang Lan's story didn't end with her injury. Back home, she became something far bigger than an athlete. She became a host of an Olympic-themed TV program. She carried the torch at the 2008 Beijing Olympics. She enrolled at Peking University, determined to be seen not as a tragedy, but as a full human being. She even trained for the Paralympics, setting her sights on table tennis.
Trevyn Joslin's mother Hannah arriving at the hearing with a hug for the teacher at the centre of the tragedy.
Shirley Naseby, who was running the gym class, said Trevyn was enthusiastic and very confident, one of the better gymnasts in the group.
She was only 12 years old, bright, cheerful, and full of life, the kind of child whose energy filled a room without effort. Trevyn Hope. Joslin wasn't just another student at Taverham High School in Norfolk. She was someone people noticed. Confident, kind, naturally athletic, one of the stronger gymnasts in her class. No one could have imagined that a routine school gym lesson would become the final moments of her life. March the 12th, 2014, began like any other school day. A standard PE class, a basic gymnastics session. Nothing extreme, nothing that raised alarms, just children laughing, moving between mats and equipment. The usual sounds of a school gym echoing around the room. Toward the end of the lesson, students were allowed to choose which apparatus they wanted to use. Trevyn, enthusiastic as always, picked the pommel horse. She had already completed several clean vaults. Everything appeared normal. She ran toward the horse again, focused, confident, but this time, as she launched, her right foot clipped the edge. It happened in an instant. A tiny error. Trevyn pitched forward and struck the mat face down. At first, it didn't look fatal. She wasn't twisted unnaturally. Some students assumed she'd just knocked the wind out of herself, but as seconds passed, fear crept in. Trevyn struggled to speak. Her lips moved, but words wouldn't come. She couldn't get up. Staff rushed to her side. The PE teacher called for assistance. Pastoral care supervisor Lynn Hammond began CPR as panic spread through the gym. "You just want to believe a child is still breathing," Hammond later said, recalling the moment. Trevyn was rushed to Addenbrooke's Hospital in Cambridge, but by then, the situation was already dire. Doctors delivered devastating news. Trevyn had suffered a catastrophic hyperextension injury to her neck. Her spinal cord was critically damaged. She fought for days, but on March 19, 2014, 1 week after the fall, Trevyn Hope Joslin died. She was healthy, active, strong. Her death felt impossible. During the inquest, it emerged that Trevyn had a pre-existing neck condition, one that could increase the risk of severe injury during high-impact activities like gymnastics. The school was aware of this condition, but due to an administrative failure, not all staff had been informed. Still, investigators found no evidence of negligence or wrongdoing, and in a chilling conclusion, medical experts stated that the injury she sustained would likely have been fatal, even in someone with no underlying condition at all. No one was blamed, but nothing about it felt fair. Shirley Nosby, the assistant head teacher who led the class that day, spoke tearfully about Trevyn. She was confident, enthusiastic, one of the better gymnasts, she said. The last memory she had of her was Trevyn running toward the apparatus, smiling, determined, unaware that everything was about to end. Trevyn's parents chose not to speak publicly after the inquest. Their silence said more than any statement could. At the school, her memory was honored quietly. A garden was created on the grounds, a cherry tree planted in her name. Head teacher Peter Ware said staff and students still speak of her with affection. "She always had a smile," he said softly. "She'll be remembered with great fondness." The official ruling called it an accident, but for any parent who has ever sent a child to school believing they would come home safe, it didn't feel like just an accident. It felt like an ordinary day that cracked open and never fully healed.
Over on the vault. Mario Marchetti scores 14.333 for parallel bars. The next performer, the United States of America, is Asher Hall.
He was only 23 years old, yet already a national icon. Anton Malej had stood on the Olympic podium in Amsterdam just 2 years earlier, claiming a bronze medal and earning the admiration of an entire nation. His future in gymnastics looked limitless. But in the summer of 1930, on a rain-soaked day in Luxembourg, that future ended suddenly, quietly, and forever. What should have been another milestone in a brilliant career became one of the most haunting tragedies the sport has ever known. That year's World Championships, then called the International Tournament, began under grim circumstances. Heavy rain flooded Luxembourg, forcing organizers to abandon the planned stadium and hastily move the competition into a school gymnasium nearby. The decision was rushed, the space was unprepared, and the equipment, as history would reveal, was dangerously inadequate. Still, the event went on. Anton Malej, known to friends and teammates as Tone, mounted the rings, an apparatus he had mastered through years of disciplined training with the so-called movement. His routine was controlled and powerful, but during the dismount, disaster struck. Beneath him, the landing area was poorly set. Thin mats laid over a hard floor, far below acceptable standards. When Malej hit the ground, the impact was devastating. There were no television cameras, no immediate medical response, just shock, confusion, and the growing realization that this was no ordinary fall. Malej was taken to a local hospital in Luxembourg, where doctors quickly understood the severity of his injuries. His spine had been critically damaged. Nothing could be done. He survived through the night. On July 15, 1930, Anton Malej died. Astonishingly, the competition continued. The Yugoslav team, shattered by grief, chose to carry on. His teammate Josip Primožić went on to win the all-around title, and the team placed third overall. But there was no real celebration. Victories felt hollow in the shadow of a teammate who would never return home. This was not simply bad luck. Fellow gymnast Edvard Antosiewicz, who had shared the Olympic podium with Malej in 1928, later spoke publicly about the conditions that day. He condemned the rushed relocation, the unsafe setup, and the lack of proper safeguards. 2 Yugoslav gymnasts had fallen during the competition. Leon Štukelj slipped from the high bar and was forced to withdraw. Anton Malej was not as fortunate. A later investigation confirmed what many feared. The gym floor had been covered with thin, unsuitable mats. The venue had not been properly prepared. Safety had been sacrificed to keep the event running. In gymnastics, where precision leaves no room for error, that failure proved fatal. When Malej's body was returned to Ljubljana by train on July 18th, the nation mourned. Tabor Hall, the center of the Slovenian Sokol movement, became a place of remembrance. More than 10,000 people gathered to pay their respects. Streets filled with mourners as his casket traveled through Skopje Loka and onward to Bohinjska Bistrica, where he was laid to rest beneath the mountains of his youth. His grave bears a bronze bust sculpted by Lojza Dolinar, a lasting tribute to a life cut short. Since 1970, an annual memorial competition has been held in his honor. Streets in Ljubljana and Bohinjska Bistrica still carry his name. It was supposed to be an ordinary summer morning at the legendary gymnastics school in Deva. Inside the quiet gym, 12-year-old Alexandra Huci trained alone, carefully working around a wrist injury that had temporarily sidelined her from full routines. She was tiny, barely 55 pounds, but already carried the expectations of Romania's proud gymnastics tradition. Coaches said she had something special, a spark, and for a while she did. Nothing that morning felt unusual. Alexandra moved through the pit with focus and discipline, doing exactly what she'd been taught. Then, suddenly, she stopped. She walked over to her coach, Liliana Kozma, and softly said she needed to use the restroom. When she returned minutes later, her face had drained of color. She whispered that she couldn't keep training. She had vomited. Her coach didn't ignore it. They went immediately to the school doctor. By the time Alexandra was examined, it was clear this wasn't nerves or exhaustion. Something was very wrong. The doctor called for an ambulance right away. What happened next would later be disputed. The school physician said Alexandra was still conscious when paramedics arrived, but the nurse who accompanied her to the hospital remembered it differently. She was already in a coma when we got there, the nurse said later. We asked if she had fallen. They said no. There had been no slip, no crash, no impact. Her body had simply shut down from the inside. Alexandra was rushed first to the pediatric hospital in Deva, then transferred to the county hospital's intensive care unit. As her condition deteriorated, doctors ordered an emergency helicopter transfer, 43 minutes in the air to the neurosurgery unit in Timișoara. By then, her small body lay motionless, kept alive by machines. Flowers and religious icons surrounded her bed, left by strangers who had seen her face on the news. Across Romania, people watched the updates in silence. Doctors ran test after test, searching for answers. Finally, a neurosurgeon delivered the truth, one no one had expected. This wasn't caused by gymnastics. There was no injury. Alexandra had been born with a hidden congenital defect, an abnormal tangle of blood vessels deep in her brain. Without warning, it had ruptured. A massive brain hemorrhage. Sudden, violent, invisible. She was in a third-degree coma. Her brain swelling with blood doctors couldn't stop. Time was running out. Back in her hometown of Roman, Alexandra's parents knew nothing. They lived in poverty near Foltățeni and didn't own a phone. By the time the message reached them, their daughter had already been fighting for her life for hours. Alexandra had started gymnastics at just 6 years old. Like many Romanian champions before her, she came from hardship and trained with quiet determination. She had recently become a national champion in her age group. She idolized the Romanian team that dominated the Sydney 2000 Olympics and spoke endlessly about one day joining them. I was very happy when Romania won, she said in an interview the year before. I don't have time for friends. I like the gym. She was 12 years old. For 5 days she held on. Machines breathed for her. Doctors waited for signs that never came. And on August 20th, 2001, Alexandra Huci died. There was no fall, no scream, no dramatic moment caught on tape, just a quiet request to her coach, a sudden sickness, and a condition no one knew existed. In Romania, her story still lingers, a child with Olympic dreams undone by something unseen. No warning, no second chance, just a silent flaw that waited patiently, then took everything.